Hello and welcome back to the Transform Awards North America 2025. I'm joined now by Duncan Shaw, who is the Chief Creative Officer at Living Group. Now, you guys have been shortlisted in 6 categories for tonight's awards with 2 clients. And I wanted to focus on one of them in particular, which is Axon, a really interesting organisation. Could you tell us a little bit about them, what they do, and why they came to you looking for help in the first place?
Well, Axon is a law firm. They're what we would call a boutique law firm, so smaller compared to big law and the big global firms that people might be familiar with. They only have 3 practice areas, which is a rarity amongst law firms. They normally do everything for everybody. So it was really lovely to work with a client that had that incredible focus and channeled work ethic. They came to us because people just didn't know who they were. They had to build credibility with an audience that... What we found was that the audience, the people who knew them well and knew them the story great. There was a lot of people in the C-suite who just didn't know who Axon was. So the challenge was really to set the story straight, create a new brand narrative, visual identity, digital expression that could help tell a story for the people who didn't yet know them.
Absolutely. And I understand that managing transformations for law firms in particular are really tricky challenges. Why is that? And what did you find was the biggest challenge here?
It's called partners or partnerships, and for somebody who's worked in partnerships for most of my life, I worked at EY in their creative team, so I've had accountants telling me how to design over the years, which is always very interesting. It's just a unique structure. So instead of having a small group of people who may own a company and they report to shareholders, you may have 200 owners of a business. You might have 1,000 owners because they've all got a stake in the business. Therefore, that stake, what comes with it is an opinion on design and brand, where they're very good at what they do. Do they know about brand? Possibly. I think the other challenge we have is a lot of partners in a law firm and across professional services feel that they are the brand because they have those relationships. They bring clients with them. So it's the biggest challenge really is to get consensus on something that doesn't get watered down.
Absolutely. It does sound like a big challenge. But tell me about the visual design you created and how that kind of backs up the strategy you devised.
Well, we tackle any project with discovery, and we spend a lot of time talking to the partners. They have some incredible clients. They work with Google, for example, so they do all Google's antitrust work across the States, which you can imagine is huge. But again, people didn't necessarily know that story, and the story needs to be told. So the brand, therefore, when we went through our process, we came up with a number of guiding principles, which were invested, inclusive, incisive. They're also indispensable to their clients. And with that in mind, we were able to build a brand that we never wanted to say the word boutique, okay? Because automatically you get the sense they're small, but really they're very agile, they're fast moving. They get to the nub of the issue a lot quicker than big law. So the idea was to build this brand where artistic sophistication met legal prowess. So we created this brand that had that elegance to it, that was high quality, that looked very different to all the competitors. And when we presented it and we put the competitor set around it, you could see straight away it was absolutely them, and has gone on to be incredibly successful for them. They're busier now than they've ever been. The brand is a year old. And the next phase of this is we're going to go out there with a campaign, get people to visit the brand a little bit more.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. And you talked there a little bit about the idea of elegance, and I wanted to talk to you about the sort of tone of voice you were able to deploy. How was that sort of inculcated in the brand itself? And why do you feel tone of voice or copy style is something that can really set legal firms apart?
Well, most lawyers get paid by the word or to critique the word, and that's just something that they're born with. So you put any words in front of a lawyer, they're immediately trained to find fault. So the tone of voice is really important. One of the things that we really focus on is making sure it's succinct. It's clear. We're not using industry acronyms that are going to confuse a client. Now, their client base is a lot of people from the tech firm, business and tech sector. Those people are not necessarily the C-suite that you would imagine. They're a younger audience. So therefore, we couldn't bamboozle them with industry jargon that just would make no sense at all. So that was something that we were really, really focused on. That tone of voice had to have that cut through, be clear, had to be human. It had to transcend across their website, but also social media, where a lot of tone of voice go to die because it just kind of goes out into the ether. So having that control and that quality from everything we did was really important. Everything we did as well was underpinned by tone of voice guidelines. So we had the visual identity guidelines, but we had a very clear way of how they write, how they articulate themselves. So that was critically important.
And tell me about the outcome of the project. Are there any results you're able to talk about, or at least how it was kind of received both internally and externally?
It's early days. It's about a year old. All I know is financially they're having the best year they've had. And what they're finding is they are reaching out and getting clients and inquiries from a whole new area that they were not necessarily well known for. So they're great in their antitrust, but they have very strong litigation and IP teams. And all three businesses are starting to really perform. Anecdotally, talking to the CMO, they feel the brand is a key part of that. It's starting to answer three unambiguous questions. So the who are you, what you do, and the really difficult one is why you matter. And through our brand and through our digital work, we're really starting to answer that. Clients, anecdotally again, love the brand. They feel it's them for the first time. Their previous brand looked a little bit like a construction company, which I think everybody agreed. It lacked the sophistication. So it's a real sense of who they are, and so far so good. Time on site, click-throughs, the consumption of content across their website, which is one of their key brand experiences, is through the roof. They're getting more conversations on Reddit, and their social media stats are equally as impressive. So they're doing a great job all around.
Well, we have happy clients, but will we have happy judges? That's the big question for Living Group and Axon tonight at the Transform Awards North America.